How's the Detroit Sports Podcast going?
This is the Detroit Sports Podcast Network.
Hey everybody, this is Freddie Cohen of ESPN Radio. When I'm not talking about breaking news or breaking news on ESPN Radio, I'm always a fan and listen to the Detroit Sports Podcast, and so should you.
Happy New Year, everybody. Our first recording of 2019. Welcome in. I am the Doc, John McAroon. Joining me, my cousin, Adam, the Jock Strozinski. Happy New Year, cuz. What's good?
New Year. It's going to be a good year, man. It's going to be a good year. 2018 was awesome. 2019 is going to be even better.
Yes, sir. Now, you came off of a 3-day stint. 4, if you include the WDFN tailgate. I got a chance to listen to you and Ryan, Friday, Monday, Tuesday. You got a chance to break down Michigan State's loss in the bowl games. A lot of interesting things happened late on the New Year's show regarding Jim Bob Cooter. Lots of talk regarding things going on in the future of the Detroit Lions. So you had yourself a good radio stint there, 4 days on air. And I honestly told you, I think you guys did a great job. And to do what you did at that time frame, because everybody realizes that, you know, people are on holiday, you guys are filling in, you're going to get a different crowd and audience. I think you guys did a great job. I enjoyed it. Caller John was awesome. The engagement was great. And I think everything went pretty good according to what I listened to, and I was very impressed. Good job, bro.
Overall, I thought it was good. Friday was a pretty good show. Monday was fire. Tuesday was very disjointed. Tuesday was a little bit of a mess. Tuesday was actually really frustrating. Tuesday has stuck with me now, and looking back on it, I'm still pretty pissed off about it, just because I try really hard and I work really hard. I want it to be as good as it could possibly be, and looking back on it, there are things I would have tweaked and things that I did different. It's one of those things. But Monday was great. Monday was probably the best show Ryan and I have ever done together. If we could find a way to duplicate what happened on Monday every single time we crack a mic, there'd be no stopping us. It would be great.
What happened Monday?
Everything just kind of came together. It flowed really nice. The way the program laid out, the interaction with people. I mean, social media was blowing up. Phone calls were coming in. It was a really good mix. It was a real good mix of everything. It worked out really, really well. Had some good audio to mix in, which is important because you need those elements. Monday just clicked. I don't know what it was. I don't know why. It could have been the topics. It could have been what we were discussing. I'm not sure. It just clicked. Whereas Tuesday felt like you were trying to cram a round peg into a square hole, and it just wasn't working. I don't know. It was a weird day. But overall, it was a really good experience, real good learning experience. I learned a ton, an absolute ton, from the dirty diaper that was Tuesday. Learned a bunch from it. So I'll take it. And, you know, I'll take my lickings and keep it moving. So it was cool. It was a really, really good time. A lot of good interaction. And I want to thank everybody, because I know this podcast plays a part in what goes on the radio. It really does, because you guys listen here, and we let you know if I'm going to do something there. And I know you guys tune in. I see the interaction. I try to interact with you as much as I can while I've got a show going on and while I'm trying to organize and plan things. I just want to thank you guys for listening and for being so supportive. And if it sucks, I appreciate you guys letting me know it sucks.
We took notice. Arthur, Mikey M, Mikey Putnam, everybody that kind of comes over here and interacted there, they did their thing and gave some strong opinions, and so it makes it for a fun time on the radio. So good for you, man. Like I said, big things are ahead for you in 2019. I just know it, and beyond, and great things again happening for the podcast. I want to thank the sponsors that make this broadcast possible: the Motor City Pawnbrokers, Podomatic, and a new sponsor, the Detroit Wazaflow soccer team. We'll talk about them a little bit later on in this podcast. Without great sponsors, we wouldn't be able to broadcast, and we thank those that are interacting with us, that are messaging us, learning more and more about what it is that we do here the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. We broadcast every single day. And like I said, now I'm getting more and more replies. The Michigan Hoops athletic director, the Michigan State Hoops athletic director now have added DSP to the media list. So I'm getting emails, a lot of information, a lot of audio. And I'm like, holy cow, they know who I am. And the denials are not just like, hey, no. They're like, hey, you know what? Tell us more about you. Reach out. You know what? We've seen you guys around. They know more about me. So in 2019, I got to do a better job of continuing to let people know what it is we do here. But it's great in that people are now aware, especially on Twitter, too. We get messages. We get a lot of engagement. When news breaks, I thank those that message, whether you call me crazy, whether you think my ideas are great or not. Engagement is great, and I think that if anybody can support Adam as well from the podcast, it's all good, and I think that's a testament to what we do here. And that, hey, like I said, I sit back and kick my feet up and go, oh, Arthur's texting into Adam. That's like, and I'm like, wait a minute, that sounds like Arthur. I was going to say, is that Arthur from the podcast, Adam? It's all over the place, and I love guys like Arthur that are like, good job, keep it going, and things like that. So you know who's not doing the job?
We have some of the best listeners and some of the best followers out there.
Exactly.
You guys are awesome and amazing.
And like
really
I said,
appreciate you guys.
And I appreciate those that say, hey, you know, add some Wings talk, add some Pistons talk. It's okay. I do think that the podcast has taken another step forward, and we'll continue to have fun, let it rip, and kick barriers, and no holds barred, and have a good time with it. And I think that's where this thing is headed. And when the Lions season ended, it was interesting in that, you know, I think a lot of us were kind of laughing and kind of jovial about it, like, all right, the season's going to end, what's going to happen? And most of us were like, okay, good. The Lions have kind of figured out how to tank. Let's look at this roster. Just take a look at who started against the Green Bay Packers, and you go, holy cow. I mean, Kenny Galladay didn't start, and you're like, okay, good. If Aaron Rodgers just stays in the game and performs, they're going to get their ass kicked. And then, of course, you know, one series or two into the game, and Aaron Rodgers goes down, and you're like, oh my God. And you look at Green Bay, and you're like, oh no. They're laying down worse than we are.
Yeah, real quick. Do you think Aaron Rodgers was legitimately concussed?
Well,
I don't. I don't believe it. Listen to this, okay?
Yeah.
So watching this game unfold, all right?
Wild ass shit.
It was nuts. I think the Packers understood what was going on. They didn't have a team to really match up against the Lions. This was a game of who wants it least, right?
Yeah.
And the Lions jump out to a 7-0 lead. Then they jump out to a 14-0 lead on a trick play. Thanks, Jim Bob Cooter, for opening up the playbook now, all of a sudden. Last game of the season, when you need to lose, you want to sit there and try to dial it up and get fancy. I think the Green Bay Packers realized, they're like, we don't have a good enough team out here. Because they were playing third-string guys. Like, they were just as beat up as you, maybe worse, because they have a worse roster than the Lions do. Anyways, I think they knew that if they could somehow get Aaron Rodgers out of that game, it's cool. You can wave the white flag. Everybody understands what's going to happen here. All right? So Aaron Rodgers goes down with a concussion, and next thing you know, the jig's up. They're mailing it in, and the Lions are like, oh, hell, let's go, Zach Center. Go out there, get 100 yards, or at least come close. Oh, go ahead, Matt Prater. Do what you got to do, baby. Oh, hell, Brandon Powell, go ahead. Run him in for a touchdown. Oh, TJ Jones, do your thing. And like they just open up the floodgates, and they're like, let's win this game. Boner jams. You stupid boner jams. You went from having the 5th pick to the 8th pick. Now, I get it. Not that big of a deal. But look at what a good organization did. The Green Bay Packers. If Green Bay would have won that game, they would have been drafting near 20. They were drafting, I believe it was 18 or 19. By losing that game, they draft closer to 10. They are now drafting in the 12th spot. They saved themselves roughly 7 draft spots. That's a good organization. That's an organization that got it.
As it happened.
We're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Let's mail it in.
Because as it happened, everybody in town was like, darn it, of course the Lions are going to put on a performance that's worthy of an NFL team. Where was that earlier in the season when you needed it versus Seattle? Where was the drive to score 31 points and to play lockdown defense? But obviously it was a situation in which those that come out and say, look, you play to win the game, obviously Green Bay did so little in that contest to warrant, really us getting that mad at the Lions. Because in the end, had you put in Castle, similar to the Arizona game, you probably were going to win 10-0. It's just Green Bay waved the white flag way better. The argument that people made that I agree with was you probably didn't have to play Stafford. That takes the heat off of the organization, and that takes the heat off. Like, say, look, if you win the game 6-3, fine, it happens.
Why not do what Rodgers did? Oh, he's banged up. We're going to sit him. Like, there was no need to play that guy. He is your franchise. He's your franchise player. This entire organization is built around him. Whether you like it or not, He is your franchise player. He's the most expensive guy on this roster. Why would you play him in this game? What if something stupid like what happened to Alex Smith? Alex Smith might never play another down in football because of the leg break that he has. Okay? So why in the world would you risk your starting franchise quarterback?
I'll tell you, because
in a game that means nothing.
They put together a system where it's drop, 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 boom, 3 steps, out. I mean, literally the ball is flying out of Stafford's hands to the point where there literally, unless he tripped over his own guy, was no chance he was going to get injured. That offensive scheme is so stripped down and so reliant on the run that in the end, I think something fluky would have had to happen for Stafford to get hurt because of the system. And so I don't think that that's what Matt Patricia and the Lions are thinking, is let's protect Matthew Stafford, because they're already doing it. I don't think there's really that much risk. I don't think the Lions believe that there was that much risk, especially with what Green Bay was doing. It looked like they just laid down. They didn't do nothing to really, impede Matthew Stafford or that offense. So obviously it cost the Lions. And then that day was interesting too, because I'm in there in the mix, and TJ Lang is messaging and tagging us in it too, because we're replying back and forth. And TJ Lang comes out and he's like, man, you guys rip us when we lose and you rip us when we win. What's going on with this town? And I messaged him. I said, don't you get it? It's like when we need you to win in a game like Seattle, when we need you to come out and perform and take a step forward, you don't do it. In a game where we're all like, goal A, goal B, goal C is to lose, you don't do it, and you cost yourself. It could have cost you upwards of 7 picks. It could have cost you, had some things not shaken out. It cost you 3 picks. And so what fans want...
In hindsight, you're like, okay, fine.
It's not too bad.
But what, like you said, what it could have cost you is absolutely ridiculous.
And I don't understand how a player doesn't realize that once the season's over, our goals change. It's the way it is. Mm-hmm. Our goals, once the Lions get eliminated, is... Number 1, draft as high as humanly possible. That is the sentiment of the fan. And if you don't see that, then you're an idiot. And maybe you've been banged around a little bit too much and you don't understand how a fan thinks. It's not that difficult to realize that if you draft a little bit higher, the hope is, because the organization has been so god-awful at drafting, that the risk is lower that you pick a bust. And obviously Stafford won, Calvin Johnson drafted 2, Sue was drafted higher, Barry Sanders, some of your best contributors have been drafted in the top 4. And so how many times are you going to draft in the top 10? So all the fans are going to tell you is, once you're eliminated, draft as high as humanly possible. And yes, here's the concept that's not too difficult to understand. Once you're eliminated from the playoffs, the majority of fans want you to lose the rest of your games. It's a win or tank situation and mentality that we're now in. And that's the way it is. It's going to be that way forever. If you're eliminated, we want you to draft as high as humanly possible, because that's where the talent is, especially when the draft is that important in the league.
And it's not so much that you're going to draft in the top 5 for the first round. It's where you draft in the preseason
second,
rounds.
Third, yeah.
Because you can make the argument that if you're drafting the top 5 in round 2, that's just as good as getting a late round pick in the first round.
Yeah.
Same thing with the third round. It's just as good as getting a late round pick in the second round, because the talent, your talent pool is much more deep and expansive when you're drafting higher. And now I get it. It's only 3 spots.
Right, but
there's a difference, and you can trade back in the draft.
Yeah.
That's where the value comes in. If there is a player out there that somebody is targeting, say the Giants, right? Giants were supposed to be behind you until you decided to trick around and win this game. All right? The Giants need a quarterback. I don't think it's anybody's belief that Eli Manning's going to be hanging around for too much longer. There's essentially one quarterback in this draft who everybody is praiseworthy about, and that's Dwayne Haskins. All right? If the Giants feel that he is the key to their franchise going forward, you have the 5th pick. Everybody ahead of you doesn't need a quarterback because they all just drafted quarterbacks. You could then trade your 5th pick with the 8th pick, grab another 2nd round or another 3rd round pick, and you have a ton of holes that you have to fill. So grab those picks, utilize those, move back, still get the player you need, let them get the quarterback that they want. You just be smart about this.
You have more options when you're drafting higher.
Yes.
And here's another thing, too, that I've realized.
The NFL is your oyster. Get the shucking.
I've realized this, too. Guess what organizations do sometimes when there's a player that they want? They go and draft up to go get him. So let's say, for example, in the 2nd round, the Lions have a guy that they want, maybe with the 3rd or 4th pick. Hell, if you had the 5th pick, you can go out and get him. Now you're forced in a position where you might have to give up a 3rd round pick or something more, a player or something else to move up when you could have already been drafting at that spot. So realize, guys, that the higher you draft, the more leverage you have. That's all we're asking for. Get the most leverage you have to improve the team.
Put the organization in the best spot to succeed.
Now, the argument that comes in to anybody that messages us at Detroit Podcast is, look, it's up to Bob Quinn anyway to find guys at 8 and to find guys at every draft spot in each round to go out there and improve this team. And I agree with that. I can agree with that argument that, you know what, it's not that big a deal. You know what, you have to go out there and find impactful players. And you know what, if you want to put the onus on Bob Quinn to go do it and you don't believe the risk is that high, we're only going by history. My eyes tell me that every single pick now in this 2019 draft is going to scare the shit out of me because 1 through 7 have a chance to be Hall of Famers, and the guy that we get, it's fair to say, could be a bust.
Yep.
And what? You doubt me or you criticize me for thinking that way? History has taught me that. We've been conditioned to be absolutely freaked out by what we're getting in terms of the draft with the Pistons, Wings, and the Detroit Red Wings. So, and the Lions as well. So you look at it and you go, okay, we're all freaked out, but yes, it's up to Bob Quinn to improve the team. And as we speak, you know what? The Lions are in a decent position heading into 2019. A bunch of cap room. They have a lot of draft picks, and they have the opportunity to broom out those that don't fit the system, and they have a chance with the money that they have, almost near $50 million, to go out there and improve. And news was made late on New Year's Day. Quote, unquote, the Lions made an emphasis of it. Jim Bob Cooter's contract was not renewed, and it only took Matt Patricia one day to simmer down emotionally to realize that, okay, I'm going to take care of this business and not let Jim Bob Cooter run this offense, which again opens you up for more criticism, which is why. Why, when you come in and you look at what's going on with the Detroit Lions, did you respect Matt Stafford and say, I'll keep this guy for a year? You wasted another year. It's unfortunate in that I know that there are some candidates that could come in here and do the job, but you wasted time by letting Jim Bob Cooter run this offense for a year when you knew outside of getting to the playoffs and making a deep run, you were going to broom this guy out. It's a dumb way of doing business. One, from Bob Quinn keeping Jim Caldwell here those couple years. And two, now when you got Matt Patricia comes in and he doesn't bring in all his guys. It's really unfortunate the method in which the Lions do things. It doesn't make logistical sense. But as we speak right now, Jim Bob Cooter is no longer running the offense. The search is out there. Adam Gase is a name that is likely going to be a hot name for the Lions to go out there and acquire. But I think a lot of things when we talk about Jim Bob Cooter,
he's going to be able to get him though.
Yeah,
he's already interviewed I think for like 3 or 4 head coaching jobs. So it's going to be difficult to grab him because why would he come be a coordinator when he could be a head coach?
Exactly.
So if he for some reason gets passed up, that I think is the guy that Matt Patricia needs to go after. He has to go grab that guy because he could change this offense.
So, in looking at Jim Bob Cooter fairly, was he the real problem, or was he just basically set up to fail? In that Matt Patricia wants to call a conservative offense. He doesn't want to risk turning the ball over. He wants to play a strict conservative style, ball control, definitely utilize the running backs to keep the ball and keep your defense fresh so they can go out there and attack. Was Jim Bob Cooter, was he treated unfairly here in Detroit in his last year with the Detroit Lions?
I don't think he was treated unfairly. I do think it's a little bit of both. He was set up to fail because of what Matt Patricia wants to do, but he was also his own worst enemy. His acumen for utilizing a run game has been suspect for a year and a half now, maybe 2 years. We started questioning this when initially when he first took over. Everybody was blinded by Matt Stafford and his fourth quarter comebacks. But we were calling questions out like, why can't we get a run game going? Why does he struggle using the run game? What's going on here? And then you've seen that this season. When this season started, you had Kerryon Johnson. And we all, watching games from the preseason, we all knew Kerryon Johnson was going to be good. I don't think any of us knew he was going to be as good as he was, but we all knew he was going to be good. We all knew he needed to be the feature back. Why did it take you 5 games to figure out he needed to be the feature back? On top of that, why did it take you so long to start force-feeding him the ball? If he carried the ball 15 times in a game, you won. It made no sense to any of us why he was only getting 5 touches, 8 touches, 9 touches, 10 touches from the running back spot. It made no sense to any of us. And then you look at what Matt Patricia wants to do. he believes in running the ball. He believes in ball control. He believes in those short passes, not really opening it up. Well, your quarterback made his name by throwing the ball deep. Your quarterback, when he came in the league, everybody talked about the cannon that he has for an arm. So I understand protecting the ball and not wanting to turn it over and winning the turnover battle. But all that being said, you're now trying, much like my show on Tuesday, you're trying to cram a round peg into a square hole. Good luck with all of that.
You know what I'm thinking sitting here? It's kind of a weird scenario sometimes when you see things and you look ahead to the future. Mm-hmm. Sometimes there are things that happen that you look ahead to and you go, well, it's just going to happen. Mm-hmm. And Jim Bob Cooter probably read the tea leaves. He was on a contract. They probably weren't going to renew it. Once Golden Tate gets shipped out, you realize, okay, Marvin Jones is out, Kerryon Johnson's out, and then Matt Patricia comes in and looks at your game plan. He's like, okay, keep it tight. Mm-hmm. And you kind of realize that. I think Matt Patricia realized it. Jim Bob Cooter realized it. Stafford realized it, that halfway through the year, everybody, obviously they can't say it publicly, but I think you and I can deduce they all realized this is going to end.
Yeah,
and
this marriage is done.
This marriage is done.
Yeah.
And so as a fan, you sit there and you go, damn, they don't have the sense of urgency like we do, in that every single year is a chance to erase the craptastic, image of the Detroit Lions as the worst organization in the history of sports. But Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn aren't taking that approach right now. They're taking the long view, and I can understand that, and I can understand their point of view. But right now, you have a fan base that's starving, beyond starving for success, and you can't sell this fan base, wait next year. You can't. The schedule came out, and the teams that you're going to play next year came out, bro. There's no way you see 9 wins on that.
Next season is going to be so tough.
It's going to be unbelievably tough, where I think right now going into it, 8 wins is the ceiling.
You get the Chiefs and the Chargers at home. Okay, cool. Good luck in those games. And then you've got to go on the road. You've got to go to Arizona. You don't travel well and you don't play well there. Yeah, I know you got to win this year, but you still don't travel well there. You've got to go to Denver. Good luck. The altitude there is a game changer for most teams. It's very difficult to overcome that. And then you've got to go play the Raiders, wherever the Raiders are going to play. Nobody knows where the Raiders are going to. The Raiders don't know where the Raiders are going to play. They might be playing in England. They might be playing in Las Vegas. They might be playing in L.A. Nobody knows where the hell the Raiders are going to play. Either way, you have to travel there, and you don't travel well. You don't travel long distances well. This organization, this team, has never traveled well.
And there's 2 layers to this. Okay, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, I do think that, okay, we got 5 years. We got a time. And right now, the dichotomy is Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are acting like, okay, let's take our time. We can get a quarterback. We can build this. We can tear it all down and build through the draft. Okay? That's one layer where you can get a sense that, in Arizona, Steve Wilkes won 3 games and they blew his ass out. Many people are already starting to clamor and start to say, well, maybe Matt Patricia should have been fired. And so you look at it and you say, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia are taking their sweet-ass time. Now, what does Martha Ford think? Because does she acquiesce to the fans who say, look, if it doesn't happen next year, there's going to be people like us and media and fans going, dude, Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia should just be blown out and start again. And so I just think that the attitude with the organization for the Detroit Lions has to be win now at all costs. And that's why I might advocate for picking up a guy like an Antonio Brown, making some moves to acquire talent, because right now I know that they're taking and thinking about a long-term view, but it doesn't seem like with what you have and perception, Matthew Stafford might be on his last legs. You might have a situation in which Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia realize, oh, damn, the organization might not be as patient as we all thought that they might be, and they might start to make some moves in that vein too. So there's a couple different layers in that you can see. You can deduce that Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn think they got a lot of time, but Martha Ford and that organization from the top up has to be realizing that, damn, these guys are not happy with a 6-win team, and the fans and the media and all the stories that are coming out are all negative. They got to go out there and win in 2019. Matt Patricia doesn't make the playoffs, people are going to be calling for his ass to get fired.
Yeah, in talking with Justin Rogers of the Detroit News, he said the same thing. He said this organization in Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia can't afford to have another season like they just had, because you could probably see them going the same way as a guy like Vance Joseph or Steve Wilkes in Arizona. He believes that at some point you've got to start putting stuff together and winning, because this season was so disjointed and it was so bad. It was just odd, because going into the year, I think we all agreed the offense was going to be the strength of this team. By the time the season was over, It was the defense that was carrying this team. And yeah, that defense got a makeover and a facelift on the fly by bringing in Snacks Harrison, but this offense has been putrid since day one. It's been brutal. Even in the offseason, it's been so bad. Your one silver lining is that it looks like you have a running back. It looks like you have a running back in possibly the foundation of a run game. Your pass game has to be overhauled. Your offensive line, again, needs to be tweaked and adjusted. You need to figure out what you're doing with one half of your line. Your right side, right now you've got 2 vacant spots. I don't see how TJ Lang comes back on his contract. I could see them letting him go and then bringing him back after they re-sign him with something along the lines of the veterans minimum. But you still have 2 spots, a right guard and a right tackle spot, that have to be filled. You need a slot wide receiver. You've got so many pieces that you still have to add on this offense, and you've been neglecting your defense for years now. Your defense needs so much help. You need at least 2 defensive ends. You need at least another D tackle. You need at least another cornerback to go opposite of Darius Slay. You need to look at your safeties. Now, I think you have some pieces here that you can use and kind of tweak and adjust. I could see Teez Tabor being moved back to safety. Cornerbacks, what's your main asset? It's usually length and speed. What does Teez Tabor not have? He does not have any length, and he has 0 speed. That's why he's been benched. You move him to safety. As long as he's not afraid to hit somebody, you move his ass to safety, and you let him go out there, and you let him roam, and hopefully, he can fit into that position. Otherwise, you just wasted a second-round pick, and that's unacceptable. You need to hit on those picks. You have to hit on those picks. So there's a way to save him, but he has to be up for a position change, and you're going to have to get real creative with how you utilize him and use him. But that's still, you still have a hole at the other cornerback spot because Nevin Lawson isn't getting it done, and you've got nobody else on this roster who can plug and play in that spot. So now you have to go out and you have to add a cornerback. And again, you've got nobody who's going to provide any type of pass rush on this team right now. I mean, your D tackles can only do so much.
So at this point in time, as we sit here after the season, the Lions went 6-10, and many people thought 7-9, 8-8 in that range, 7-9 wins. They thought, okay, with the talent, if everybody stayed healthy, they could have done some things. And you look across the league, and other coaches had success. You look at Frank Reich, you look at what's going on, Nagy in Chicago. They came in right away and had success, and you're in the class of those that kind of underachieved, and you have a lot of bad press and bad negativity going on with the Lions and Patricia. You had news late in the season regarding his inability to schedule meetings on time and attend them and things like that. So a lot of things came out regarding maybe some of the reasons why it didn't take off. But what's your hope meter now for 2019? Because Matt Patricia comes out and says, I feel like the foundation for a championship has been laid. We have an opportunity to put together a defense. We have a core group of guys that can be worked on and added to establish a defense. They were able to, shut out Green Bay and limit some opposing offenses to do, they made the Rams offense look kind of pedestrian. They were able to kind of do some things, and Matt Patricia's defense obviously is the strength of what he brings to the table. But the problem is that, with each calendar year, you're going to lose a lot of talent as well, some leadership, you're going to lose some people, and in the end, I kind of fall back and revert to the same thing. This team goes where Stafford goes, and if he doesn't evolve, if he doesn't get better, obviously you can work on the defense as much as possible, but this is a offensive league, and so if it doesn't work out with Matthew Stafford, they go out and they sign Connor Cook to a futures deal. Obviously, it's great that he's a Spartan, but in the end, that's the guy that's going to push Stafford. That's not realistic. He's going to probably be pegged to be the backup. And that's not realistic. I don't think if Stafford goes down, does anybody have faith that Connor Cook's going to come in and do anything? But that's the guy that potentially could be developed as well.
Would you not agree, though? He's probably a better backup option than either Jake Rudock or Matt Castle.
But where we're all at is we want somebody to actually come in and take the job, not just be a place setter for Stafford to come back. But, as they're saying to us, they still believe in Stafford, but behind the scenes, we know 2019 could be it for Stafford. And so that's why, I wrestle back and forth as a fan. I go, you know what? Can they build the Patriots? My honest opinion, my hope meter in that sense, can they build a team that can win the division for 10 straight years? No, I don't believe that. So then I revert back to okay, let's just load up for one run. You know what? Let's just say, go out there, get a Le'Veon Bell, get an Antonio Brown, blow through the cap through free agency, don't build through the draft, Just go out there and make one run. Hell, if you get to the Super Bowl, that could probably carry you for a decade with the fans because we're so starved. Obviously, the goal is to build a contender year in, year out, but I don't think my faith that could ever happen is real, and I don't think it's realistic with what's going on in the division. The division is tight, so I'm like, you know what? Let's just load up and let's just build. Build for 1 year, build for 2019, build for 2020, and that's it. You win 2-3 playoff games, you get to the Super Bowl and lose, that'll be enough, and then you could tear it all down again. But, the way in which the Lions conduct business just doesn't give me a lot of hope, especially when you look at the schedule. You look at all the work that it takes to build a team. Okay, that's just in perfect case scenarios for the Lions. Then you got to contend with the rest of the league that just has so much, talent across the board. You look at the NFC, you look at what's going on in Philadelphia, where they go to their backup and he gets big wins. And you look at Chicago and Indy.
Foles, bro.
Yeah, you look at other organizations and they just kind of rise up, and we're waiting here with the Lions. So for me, where I stand is, you got to do some things crazy to shake things up. The traditional way that everybody thinks can work hasn't. So why would I continue to believe that is where I'm at. So I'm like, let's just do something crazy. You know what? Maybe you have to trade Matthew Stafford now and do it June 1st to save some relief from the cap and just make a move. Maybe, you know what? Maybe you say, yeah, let's take a longer-term view, and you trade Stafford and you actually tank for next year and get the number 1 pick and actually get the franchise quarterback and build through 2 drafts if you can kind of read Martha Ford and realize, look, if we can weather the storm for 1 more year, let's just tank again in 2019 and do it the right way, get the number 1 pick and build, for 2020, and that's our run. We'll build for 2020, 2021, and if it doesn't work out, we'll leave with our heads, held high and move on to the next organization.
So if you trade Matt Stafford after June 1st, it's only a $10 million cap hit.
Is it really? Yeah. After June 1st?
Yeah. If you trade him, if you trade him before, I think it's like 32 or something like that.
Oh man,
so
10 million?
Yeah,
I'm booting him out the door.
Would you
right
eat
away.
that?
Yeah,
eat that, no problem.
10 million? That's it? I'd do it right away.
It's same thing with Antonio Brown. If Antonio Brown is traded after June 1st, his cap hit is only $7 million for the Steelers. If he's traded beforehand, it's $20 million. So it's one of those things where you could realistically trade Matt Stafford. You can't trade him before the draft, but you could trade him before the season. You'd eat $10 million, and then, if you go out, you either draft your quarterback in this draft, or you draft somebody and you bring Stafford, or you bring a backup up and let them play as your quarterback. There is the flexibility to do that, and that is possible. I don't know if this organization is going to do it, though. I really feel like Bob Quinn, Matt Patricia, Matt Stafford are all connected at the hip.
Yeah, it's a situation, when you look at the Lions, it's so frustrating because they are so close, but they are also so far away, where we could see them going 10 wins next year, but we could also see them going 5 wins.
It's nuts,
it's
right? It's
scary to watch, and next year will be interesting to see how this progresses with the draft, and hope will spring eternal again next year. But
this is why I was so upset that they ended up winning this game, because you're stuck in this lane of mediocrity. Yeah. Whether you're either 9-7 or you're 7-9, or you're on the fringes of those. You're never actually a lethal contender in the playoffs. You're sometimes good enough to get in, or you back in somehow, but you're never, like, nobody talks about you like they talk about the Saints, or they talk about the Chargers, or even Seattle. Do you know what I'm saying? Nobody talks about you like that. You're just kind of there. You're like the Cowboys. You're the fraudulent team that makes it to the playoffs now and again. That's what you are. That's why it was important for me for this team to get that top 5 pick, right? Because you can go out, you can add a generational talent, or you can move back in the draft and you can add good players with more draft picks. There are things and ways to do things with a higher draft pick than with drafting 8th or 10th or wherever. You had the ability to really change the course of this franchise by losing that game. And you kind of shot yourself in the foot, and you got lucky that other teams played dumb as well, and you only fell back 3 spots instead of all the way down to 12.
One closing thought in regards to the Lions and the NFL. The league is, as it stands, for NFL, not for long. And there is definitely a worthwhile debate to be had. Should you give a coach 3-4 years no matter what you do? And you look at Arizona, you look at some of the coaches that have been let go. It's a tough league, man. You got to win. And you look at it each and every year, 8 teams are changing coaches every single year. And you realize that, some of the organizations that have kept their coach for a while, like a Mike Tomlin and other coaches that have had long tenures, also have success with continuity and things like that. But in this situation, it's a very fine line where it is a risk, I think, if it doesn't look like it's trending upward for the Lions to stick with Patricia for 5 years. And I do think that, you know what? Yes, we have to see signs of a team that's growing. We have to see signs of a team that's playing hard all the way through. And we have to see signs of a coach that knows what he's doing. So I would not be, terribly upset if after 2 years that Martha says, look, Bob, sorry, this is the wrong guy. Go out there and get a guy that's been a coach before, that knows what he's doing, that's had some success. Or get somebody that's just won the Super Bowl as a coordinator, or somebody from a winning organization that we know can go out there and do the job. Now, Patricia's doing it on the defensive end. I don't see in the league shifting back to defense. I do think maybe they'll make tweaks to make it a little bit more advantageous for the defense, but it's an offensive league. It draws ratings. Passing is great, big time plays. You get a lot of excitement out of it. And so across the board, look, if you don't win, you don't get a second year. Mm-hmm. And I think that's right. And I don't want to bring race into it, and I don't think that's fair. Look, across the board, you look at it and you say one coach, that's African-American got 17 years or 16 seasons with one organization that never won a playoff game. So you look at it and you say, yes, there are opportunities for more minorities to get jobs, but in the end, if you win, you're going to stay a long time. If you get to the playoffs, you get more chances if you kind of take your team to the Super Bowl, if you kind of show that the players are in line with what you're doing, if the noise is kept to a minimum, you do get more chances. But across the board right now, coaches get 2 years, 3 max. If you're not in the playoffs, you can't go 3 years in the National Football League without making the playoffs and expect that you're going to have a job, period.
The league sets it up for you to get to the playoffs every 3 years.
You got to do it.
You have to do it, though. You've got to figure it out. You've got to break the code. The teams like the Patriots that have cracked the code and do it consistently, 10-plus years making the playoffs, those teams, absolutely insane, crazy.
And you have to look at it with the league in that, there are teams that actually rebuild on the fly during the year, like Seattle. They kind of went through a quick shift from the Legion of Boom. They're cutting players left and right. And they're in the playoffs. And you look at it and you go, that's how important drafting is. That's how important a system is, how important a coach is. And yeah, it's tough, And it'll be interesting to see if Jim Caldwell comes back, some of the retread coaches that are being looked at across these 8 openings. I can't wait to see where these openings kind of shake out. Who goes where, who shakes out. It's going to be a fun time. But for the Lions, we just have to continue to be critical. We have to maintain the ability to watch objectively what we're seeing and not just blindly follow them because we're fans. Look, we cheer, we root and things like that, but we're no less of fans because we are hypercritical of the Lions. Look, 61 years of history and more of them not having success. So look, you know what, like TJ said, stick with us. We're building something great here, but also at the same time realize that, some of us don't believe. And you got to give us a reason to believe. Mm-hmm. So 2019, we'll play it next week. Give me something to believe in. Give me a reason to believe in you. Because right now, I'm starting at 0. There's nothing outside of maybe a couple guys on offense that gives me hope or faith that this team's going to do anything. 2019, give me something to believe in. All right, let's take our first time out. We'll come back. We're going to talk about college football. And then to end the podcast, some hopeful topics. Maybe some organizations will turn the page and actually give us something positive to talk about in 2019 and beyond. Stick with us. You're listening to Doc and Jock on the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Doc here for the Motor City Pawn Brokers because I want to tell you about a great pawn shop that has multiple locations in Metro Detroit. The Motor City Pawn Brokers are the one-stop pawn shop when you're in need of short-term cash or are looking for quality, brand-name new, and pre-owned merchandise. With locations in Detroit, Ferndale, Roseville, and Warren, their mission is to deliver exceptional value. To learn more about the Motor City Pawn Brokers and what great deals are available, go visit MotorCityPawnBrokers.com. That's MotorCityPawnBrokers.com, a great sponsor and supporter of the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. So, Adam, who knew that the West would produce winners from the Big Ten? They did well in the bowl season, whereas Michigan State, they didn't fare too well. And I think the Big Ten overall went 5-4. Michigan State did not do well. They disappointed heavily. And obviously, you and I both said going into it, look, we're not that interested. This probably is going to be a wild, silly bowl season. Let's just pay attention to the big boys. And that didn't disappoint. I mean, if you're a fan of close games and drama and intrigue, that's fine. I can understand why you would think the playoffs were not that good. But, dude, to see Alabama and to see Clemson destroy opponents, that's cool to see, too. And I can't wait for Monday to see what's going to happen there. Alabama is going to be on pace, I think, for a 15 or 14-0 season, going undefeated. Holy cow. Can Clemson make it happen? And I think you and I will debate whether seeing Alabama-Clemson, I think now for the 4th year in the playoff, is that valuable? Is that boring? Is that just something that just has to change? But
I'm over it.
Okay.
I'm over it.
Okay, we'll
just going
see.
to put it out there.
Michigan State, obviously, when they played their bowl games, definitely their warts rose to the surface, and the same shit that we were concerned about going into the game arose during the game.
Mm-hmm.
And let's start with Michigan because, yes, I will give those that say, look, it's a meaningless game. It's not that big a deal. Yes, it's meaningless. In the grand scheme of things, when Karan Higdon, when guys that are contributors don't show up and they don't play, it's meaningless. But here's the part where we take value in that. Obviously, we all pay attention to sports. When something happens year after year after year, because I read a stat, it's the 3rd year now in a row where they've lost to Ohio State and the bowl game.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, now we're starting to see trends, which is given time to prepare for one opponent, Jim Harbaugh does a shitty job. And that's embarrassing for a coach that is considered elite among the fraternity of coaches. And you look at that performance, whether they won or lost, it was not going to make a big difference on what we talked about. But what we saw was embarrassing in that there was an absolute refusal to adjust the offense. There was more wrinkles, but again, Mikey Putnam said it. He was pissed off. He said, look, we're still running it on first down. The offense is not opened up. The team, Michigan, looked like it just showed up there to just kind of engage in some competitive stuff with Florida off the field and to hang out and enjoy Chick-fil-A and then just show up and play. And Florida looked like they were, going to get relegated if they lost that game.
Florida was invested in that game.
Yes, and that's the part that's frustrating to everybody watching is that how come Michigan and Jim Harbaugh could not motivate their players to be able to go out there and handle their business? And Chase Winovich had another telling comment where he comes out and says, look, Florida exposed our weaknesses. They knew what was coming, and they were able to utilize the same things that other teams did like Indiana, Ohio State to take advantage. And that's the big problem because when it's all said and done, the biggest complaint that people have now, and they're starting to point the finger at one guy, Jim Harbaugh is the problem at Michigan, and his refusal to adapt that offense, his refusal to give over control to people that are qualified, having way too many cooks in the kitchen, has resulted in what you've seen now. Look, give him credit. 10 wins, 3 out of 4 years is not easy. But with expectation
But when
comes,
you beat nobody, it
Yes.
doesn't really matter.
But look, you know what? You still got to give him credit for doing it because Rich Rod was tasked with the job. Brady Hoke was tasked with the job of getting to that level. You got to give him credit for getting to that level, but you also got to give him criticism for when the time comes and you go to the final exam. Because all these other games versus State, versus SMU, Wisconsin, those are all quizzes. When the big final exam comes versus Ohio State, versus Florida, versus top 10 teams, you shit the bed and you flunk. Unfortunately, that counts. And when you don't, it's not like he got a C. He got an F for awful. And so that's what's happening is that, good, you can pass the quizzes, you can be a model student, great. But when it comes down to the final, you're fucking up.
Wouldn't that be an A for awful? It's the F in awful, is that what that is? It's a lowercase a, and then it's a capital F. No, you're right. If you look back at the Ohio State game, what ate the Michigan defense alive? It was crossing patterns. What did Felipe Franks do? He hit crossing patterns.
And everybody knew it.
Yeah, it was nuts.
I asked Mike, I said, the crossing patterns are coming.
Yeah.
What are you going to do about it?
Like Don Brown was like, oh, it's cool. We can't play his zone. Yeah, you can, dummy. It's okay. Honestly, it's okay. Like, you know what they're going to throw at you because it's what killed you in the only game that you got embarrassed in. So why not prepare for that? No, it's okay. We're going to play this high-risk, high-reward defense. All right, cool, bro. And then you got 8 alive. And then on offense, you show no originality. There's nothing special about this offense. There has never been anything special about this Michigan offense. It is brutal. You can't keep running the same crap that you ran in the 80s. The game has evolved. The game has changed. Look at what the 4 teams do that are in the college football playoff, including Notre Dame. And Notre Dame struggled heavily against Clemson.
Speed.
It's what it is. It's all about speed, and it's all about getting players down the field to stretch the field. You know what happens when you stretch the field? Hey, everything opens up underneath. And you know what then happens? You can then run the ball at will, or you can hit little dump-off passes to tight ends or to slot wide receivers, and then they can take the ball down the field. You have to be able to stretch the field. You have a quarterback. You went out and you fought for this quarterback, and you bring him in here, and you limit him. Essentially, Shea Patterson was a game manager this season. That's all he was. He did nothing special for you. He did nothing out of the ordinary. Honestly, guys, go look at his stats. He did nothing this season. Really and truly, did absolutely zero. This offense looked more lethal when Dylan McCaffrey was in there.
I wanted to ask you that. Next year, some people are saying, you know what? Is Shea Patterson really the best quarterback on that roster? Dylan McCaffrey, when you just look at him side by side with Patterson, bigger, stronger, bigger arm. Mm-hmm. Do you think that maybe there's a chance that McCaffrey beats out Shea Patterson next year?
I don't, because, again, Jim Harbaugh is too damn stubborn. He's too regimented in his own ways. You need to bring somebody else in here as your offensive coordinator. And yes, make them an offensive coordinator. Jim doesn't need to be tasked with running the offense. Jim should have his hands in everything and involved in this team. There is no reason he should be making the final decision on what plays are being called. If there's something he doesn't like, sure, you have veto power. You're the head coach. That's how it is. But the guy who's calling in the plays and is scripting the first 15, 20 plays of the game, that should be your OC. Shouldn't be Pep Hamilton. It shouldn't be a wide receivers coach. It shouldn't be some passing coordinator or a run coordinator. No. It should be one man. It should be the offensive coordinator. If you feel that Pep Hamilton is the best guy for that job, then damn it, name him the OC and let him do his job and get out of the way. Please get out of the damn way. You need to somehow create an offense that is explosive. You have a guy in Dylan McCaffrey who looks... Honestly, every time he has the ball, you don't know what's going to happen because he has so many tools at his disposal. He's elusive when he runs. He can throw the ball. The guy has speed. He is so talented. Yet you want to go with Shea Patterson. I'm fine with you going with Shea Patterson because what Shea Patterson does with the read option is amazing. It's absolutely amazing. But you know what? You know how many times you do that in a game? You only do it about 3 or 4 times. Whose fault is that? Is that Jim Harbaugh's fault? Probably. Is it the fact that there is no offensive coordinator? Probably. You have a guy in Shea Patterson who has this skill set, and he's exceptional at it, yet you don't want to do that. You don't want to run these plays with him. Instead, you'd much rather hand it off, ground and pound, 3 yards in a cloud of dust. Why? Running for 100 yards in a college football game is not impressive. It really isn't. If you can get a running back out there running for 150, 200 yards, that's impressive.
Here's the thing, and you asked a great question on WDFN on New Year's Day, and you said, who has the biggest balls enough to make the change? And I think the question is also can be relevant and be put this way. Who's actually willing to change for the better good, even if it's against their personal beliefs? And here's why. Michigan State and Mark D'Antonio and Jim Harbaugh and Michigan, all right? They want to win in the style in which they've gone about their business in the last couple years. And so look at Nick Saban, okay? A guy that's had success. He said, oh, holy crap, we've been, primarily a defensive team, and now we're looking at an offense in the SEC that we got to kind of keep up with it. So he evolved for the better good. And he's just always about is winning.
Nick Saban has gone through 2 and 3 offensive coordinators in one season.
And so you look at our guys here across the board with Mark D'Antonio, Jim Harbaugh, and Matt Patricia, and they would rather tell everybody, look, yeah, you can win running the ball. I mean, Mark D'Antonio came out and told the media, our path to success in the past has been running the football. We want to run the ball 30, 40 times a game. And he actually said that publicly. And that's their goal, is they would rather win 1 year out of 5 and say, look, we did it our way. Than it is to actually put together systems and evolve at the time when the pace tells you to evolve. Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to do. And that's been the biggest detriment of Michigan and Michigan State is the stubbornness of the coaches, their refusal to put together offenses that resemble what's going on in the big-time world of athletics in 2018. That's the biggest problem. And you can kind of understand what happened with Michigan in 2018. They rolled off 10 straight wins doing what they were, in that system. Nobody was there telling anybody, you know what, Jim, this is good now, but against Ohio State, against the big dogs, we definitely got to have some more wrinkles. We got to have a lot more presence on the offense. We got to throw the ball deeper. We got to be able to utilize the talent we got. We got wide receivers that can do the job. Tariq Black, you got Donovan Peoples-Jones, speed. You got these big guys, and yet we're still going to run the ball first and second down and not utilize an offense that's really conducive to winning at a national scale. And that's the biggest problem, is that Jim Harbaugh wants to puff his chest out and say, see, look what I did. Well, unfortunately, you know what? You're not being judged up against the likes of those that coach Purdue, Minnesota. You're not being coached against PJ Fleck, or you're not being evaluated. Jim Harbaugh and Mark D'Antonio are not being evaluated and compared to PJ Fleck. They're being compared to Nick Saban, the guy, Dabo Swinney, the guys in the world of college football that are the best. What are they doing as opposed to what you're doing? This is why everybody's pissed, is that you realize, wow, we're going into it as second-class citizens, and it's not fair that, you know what, going into games and going into big matchups, we're at disadvantage because of the offense. And just quickly to talk about Michigan State, 7-6 loss, bro. What ailed the Spartans came out and ailed them again, in that you realized coaching cost them that game. You go for it on fourth down, in a situation when points are at a premium. Why? And you don't even execute. There are situations in which Lewerke was not put in the position to succeed. You saw that offense was stale, and you saw situations in which the Michigan State Spartans offense, their offensive game plan, had no chance of giving them an opportunity to win. And what frustrates everybody is that defense was good. That defense was top 5 nationally good, and you paired it with an offense that was bottom feeders. And how is that possible in this day and age where you have such a discrepancy across the board in units on your team? You can't have a 150th ranked offense and then pair it with a top 5 defense. That's embarrassing. It's frustrating. You make Brian Lewerke look, like a guy that doesn't know how to pass. You have situations where you have talent, but across the board, you're running an antiquated system. And again, in East Lansing, nobody's sure that Mark D'Antonio is going to go up there. At this point in time, Dave Warner, Bowman, all should have been they should not have even been allowed on the plane back.
They should all be blown out.
The entire offensive staff needs to go. And I'm hoping and begging, and it's been brought up, and it sucks because of the fact that how can Michigan State and the administration look the fans in the eyes and say, we don't have the budget to pay these guys. Adam Gase should be on a private jet right now into East Lansing. You guys won the Rose Bowl. You were in the national title picture just 3-4 years ago. Open up the fucking checkbook and bring guys in here. You don't think Adam Gase could come to Michigan State and turn this program around? Hand him the situation. Pay him $1.5 million a year. Look, you get a jet. You get this. You get your own office over there in East Lansing. I'll leave you alone. You got a job for the next 10 years. Look, do the job. Pay the money. And look, I know we can't compete right now, from what everybody says, with Michigan's dollars. But what's embarrassing is that how are you going to expect to get the best out of the program by paying coordinators $300,000-$400,000. That's not what anybody's doing. No. You got to go out there and get NFL head coaches and compete and say, look, I'm the man. I can build a defense. That's my department. We're good. You can see it on film. My offense sucks, and we've ruined the last 4 years, and we've taken a step back from where we were because of an offense. Shame on Mark D'Antonio for having it happen this way. Shame on him for not, advocating for more dollars to get the best people to do the job. Shame on Michigan State for, following a 10-win year with a 5-loss or 6-loss season. How embarrassing is that? 7-6 when you shut down the number 5 overall draft pick. Shame on Michigan State.
How do you, as a team, only score 6 points when you possess the ball for almost 15 minutes more?
Thanks.
And, and you outgain them in yardage by 100 and almost 30 yards.
Here's why.
How?
The problem was, throughout the entire year, the red zone. They just don't have an offense to put the ball in the end zone. The plays aren't creative.
Well, if you're an offensive coordinator, that's your job.
Yeah.
So you're failing at your job.
Yeah, exactly.
At some point, Mark D'Antonio has to say, look, I've got a legit defense. Like, that defense held Oregon to 203 yards for the day.
Yeah.
Oregon puts up almost 450 yards every time they take the field. Mm-hmm. You held them to 203 yards. You have a legit defense, and your offense shot you in the foot again.
So, cuz with that said, obviously offense is going to be the topic du jour in the coming months. Which football team in Michigan is going to improve that offense the best, and who has the most chance for success in 2019 of the coaches, Matt Patricia, Jim Harbaugh, or Mark D'Antonio? Who has a chance to put aside their ego, put aside their stupid-ass beliefs that ball control is important and that 1980s offense is the way to go with premier defenses? Because you look at it, what's most surprising is that Jim Harbaugh is an offensive guy. D'Antonio and Patricia can get a little bit of a pass, and they're defensive wizards, and they kind of want to have an input in the offense like, look, control the damn ball, don't take risks, don't put my defense in a situation that's disadvantageous. Don't ever do that. I can understand that, but Jim Harbaugh, dude, he was a gunslinger. He wasn't a bum. He wasn't Captain Checkdown.
He wasn't at all.
Right? So you look at it and you say, which coach is going to put aside his ego and actually improve that offense? Who's going to have a better year in 2019?
I think so. You're already seeing some movement with the Lions. So I think right off from Jump Street, Lions have a head start on all of this. I don't think Mark D'Antonio is going to do anything because he's just too damn loyal. I think he's too damn stubborn. He gets in his own way a lot of times. He's a hell of a football coach. If he could somehow be a little bit more flexible and see what the hell is actually going on instead of being like, no, it's my way or the highway, this football team would be a legitimate threat in the Big Ten. But he gets in his own way and he holds his team back. I think Jim Harbaugh will probably... It's hard. Because Jim Harbaugh's already come out and said he doesn't want to make any changes.
Right. Minimal changes. Oh, thank you. Thank you for that. Appreciate it.
I think once the season dies down and Jim Harbaugh separates himself from this year, he'll realize that he has to make an adjustment offensively. I think he'll be the coach to make the biggest offensive adjustment. I think Patricia wants to be a little bit too hands-on with that offense, and he wants to play it safe. He wants to limit what Matt Stafford does, which is brutal. So I'm gonna say Jim Harbaugh, just because I believe he'll figure it out. I think Mark D'Antonio is too stubborn, and I think Matt Patricia has a philosophy where he wants to control the ball, dink and dunk. Let's not turn it over. Let's not be risky.
And here's what I think is going to happen. They all will make changes, but all will make 10% changes. They all want to run the damn ball. They all want to prove that, hey, we can have rebound years by doing it our way. They will make improvements by a couple more plays deep, a couple more wrinkles to the offense, a couple more end arounds, a couple more calls where they don't run the ball on first down. But
extra jet sweeps.
Exactly. And so here's what's going to happen. You're going to see wrinkles, but each of them, I'll say equally, will improve their offense just minimally. It's going to be more of the same. They don't acquiesce. They got big egos. These guys are guys that say, look, if we improve on execution, if we get more of the talent that we need, if we go out there and improve just a little bit, we will have success. So the same thing. You think that the Detroit Lions in 2019 are just going to run and gun all over the place and look like the Rams? Hell no. No, it's going to be more tight ends over the middle. It's going to be a lot of Kerryon Johnson. It's going to be captain check down, maybe going from 4.5 yards an attempt to maybe 8. And maybe just kind of keeping it in a little bit tighter window with maybe a couple more deep throws to Kenny Galladay when the defense allows it. That's what's going to happen. And you're going to see more of the same because Jim Harbaugh, I think right now, wants to keep the 10-win scenario in play because even though certain fans and certain people critique him, I still feel like in that building, he's king of the jungle. And he's going to go out there and get 10 wins. And you know what? The big matchup is going to be Jim Harbaugh versus Ryan Day next year in Ann Arbor. That's going to be the matchup that they're going to go with. And going into the year, they're going to have a lot of big games in Ann Arbor. So more of the same. I think minimal changes across the board because these guys are stubborn to that degree where they won't make that change 10% across the board. You believe that?
Yeah, no, I do believe that.
Minimal
That's
changes.
the problem.
And I think we're all like, what the hell? They're still doing it.
If you're a Michigan fan, is 10-3 acceptable? Are only having 10 wins acceptable? Because
that's the question.
For me, it sure as hell isn't. 10-3 is not acceptable. It just isn't. I expect national championships. I expect Big Ten championships.
I think you might have changed those expectations.
No, I demand more. I want more. If you're a Michigan State fan, you should want more. Big Ten championships and national championships. That's what you should want. Same thing for the Lions. I want you to play in a Super Bowl. Whatever it takes. Do what you got to do. Figure it out. That's why you have that position. That's why you make all the money you make. That's why you have all the stress you have with putting a team together because it's your job. It's your job. My job, the stress that I have, is trying to put shows together that get people to listen. That's my job. You do your job, I do my job.
On our poll, 45% believe that Jim Harbaugh will have the most success, followed by 34% Mark D'Antonio, 21% only said that Matt Patricia will have that success. Interesting. Now, we'll play a voicemail. Somebody got in and wanted to talk about Jim Harbaugh and the University of Michigan after the bowl game. And then after, we'll take a quick timeout, come back, and we're going to have a little bit of hope. We want to give all the luck, all the joy to one team. We'll see who Adam wants to give all the luck to have great success in 2019, and I think it's going to be definitely different. But definitely, I want to ask you this before I play the voicemail. You said it yourself. You think Clemson, Alabama is played out. You don't want to see it. Why? I think it's the greatest matchup, the two best teams with the two best coaches. Let them duke it out. It will be a classic. It will be a great game. And I think that when you look at stories, just check out the championship game from last year. There was drama. There was intrigue. I think when you see the best two teams play and they match wits against each other, it produces quality football. Yes, it is the same teams. But unfortunately, when the two best coaches are coaching the two best teams in the country, this is what happens. They deserve to be the guys playing, and they deserve to be the teams playing. It's going to be great. I think it's not played out. Keep it the same and go out there and defeat the guys that are the best. Defeat Clemson, defeat Alabama, and your title will be worth a whole heck of a lot more. You have to have Kings of the Jungle so that when you get there, if Michigan State or Michigan gets there again, you defeat Alabama, it means a hell of a lot more than beating Ohio State.
Now, while I think it's interesting, and I think it's going to be a good game when Clemson and Alabama meet up, I'm just overseeing it. I'm just tired of seeing it. Like, I want something new. I want something fresh.
Oh.
I want a different storyline.
Okay.
I mean, this is, how many times have they met up already for this? I want something
I think they played in 4
new.
consecutive years. Yeah.
I just want something new now.
Okay.
That's all I want. I just
Something
want
new.
something different.
All right, let's play
every now and then, strange is good. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Here's a voicemail, I think, from a longtime listener.
This is Dr. Dre. Just want to say, get rid of Harbaugh. Harbaugh is not a winner. He cannot win in Michigan. He is 1986 style. Enough is enough is enough. No more Harbaugh, and maybe, just maybe, we can win the big games. Because if they can't beat Ohio State with a new coach at home, he should be fired.
The pressure's on. A lot of people are saying, look, 2019 is going to be a monumental season for Michigan. The seat is warmer, but I don't think in the coming years that Jim Harbaugh is going to face a whole heck of a lot of critique. But it's a big year, and I can't wait to see what's going to happen, because does the fan base completely turn on Jim Harbaugh? I do think that Sentinel game next year, last game of the year, Ohio State, Michigan, Ryan Day, Jim Harbaugh. If Jim Harbaugh can't beat Ryan Day,
bro,
it's going to be bad news rising.
If that happens.
Woohoo! All right, we'll come back, one final segment, and we'll talk about some hope. Who we want to give some love and joy to. Who are we going to give some positivity to? Stay with us. You're listening to the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Adam, I want to tell you about the Detroit Wazaflow soccer team. As a member of the Major Arena Soccer League, the Wazaflow represent their state with pride. The Wazaflow have won the Professional Arena Soccer League, PASL, Eastern Division Championship in 2012 and 2013, and were finalists in the league championship each of those years. In 2013, the Wazaflow vanquished the storied San Diego Sockers at the U.S. Open Cup final to claim the coveted trophy. The Wazaflow roster is made up of players from all over the globe that have played collegiately and professionally in the U.S. and abroad. Countries represented on the Wazaflow roster include Albania, Brazil, Bosnia, Canada, Kenya, Malta, Mexico, Romania, Serbia, United States, and Yemen. For the 2017-2018 season, Wazaflow has young players that grew up playing soccer from many local youth organizations, including Ann Arbor United, the Michigan Wolves, Revolution, Varder South, and Waza FC. In 2017-2018, the Wazaflow will be part of the Major Arena Soccer League 2, MASL 2, and will play in the Eastern Division against teams from Cincinnati, Chicago, Muskegon, Denver, and Colorado Springs. So for all information about the Detroit Wazaflow, check out wazaflow.soccershift.com. That's wazaflow.soccershift.com. Thank you for joining us and becoming a new sponsor of the network, the Detroit Wazaflow. All right, cuz, we're going to end this podcast with some positivity.
I like positivity.
Yes, 2018 was a year, cuz, for Detroit sports that many people are going to want to forget. I mean, basically, all the organizations should tank and should look to rebuild Some are in the midst of that process. The Red Wings and Tigers are rebuilding. Are they doing it the way 100% that we would all like? No, but they are actively rebuilding. And you look at teams like the Pistons and Lions, and they're getting there, but they're doing it at a slow pace. And I think for the Pistons, the move to acquire Blake Griffin set back a rebuild by a couple of seasons. So you look at it, Detroit sports is really a mess right now. Not a lot of teams have a lot of faith that they can move forward, but, we're in a situation in which we got to give hope. And right now, currently, the biggest news and the biggest positivity comes from the college teams. Michigan State hoops are ranked both in the top 10 nationally. You got Michigan and Michigan State. They're going to play 2 games this year, home and home. It's going to be interesting to see how the rivalry between Tom Izzo and John Beilein plays out in 2019 with 2 great games upcoming. It's going to be unbelievable. But for me, I'm obviously going to give all the luck, all the hope to the Michigan State Spartan football team. If Mark D'Antonio can sit there and watch the film of the last 7 games where touchdowns were scarce, they look like something that was magical, farcical. A touchdown? I mean, taking the ball into this white line and crossing it? If he watches and goes, damn, I had a defense. If I can just match, if I can evolve, if I can put aside my desire to pound the rock, and throw the ball deep, use this quarterback Lewerke. If I can give him and insert this thought in his brain, if he somehow is listening, if I can insert the notion of, hey, copy Alabama, copy your mentor, copy people, it's okay. Go out there, find staff members from Alabama. Go out there, find staff members from Clemson that want to come here, pay them, and get something in that offense. If you can establish some luck, if you can decide which quarterback is your guy, the team that I want to give all of my luck to is the Michigan State Spartan football team. You?
I'm much more simple. Much more simple. I want to give it all to the Lions.
Yeah, right?
Like, I think just for the city of Detroit, and for the state of Michigan for that fact, Jesus Christ, if the Lions could just somehow get to a Super Bowl, at this point you don't even have to win. Just get in.
That was
just
the
be
most
there.
Cause that was the answer that was most tweeted to us.
Mm-hmm.
But then what was added to the comma? It was like, I want to give it to the Lions, but they would fuck it up anyway. So let's pass. That's where we're at with the Detroit Lions. Always next season, no faith.
Oh.
So you really would give the faith to the Lions? They would take it and fuck it up, bro.
I probably. I just want them to get to a Super Bowl, man. Like I said, you could lose.
Right.
I think I'd be okay with that because you were there.
Yes.
You were there. I mean, if you won, honestly, if they won, half of downtown would be burned to the ground.
Yeah, right?
We would have to rebuild downtown after February 7th because it would just burn for 3 days.
Oh,
it'd be
baby.
absolutely nuts.
It would be a great time, man. We'd put a table out there and broadcast from the rides.
We would.
Broadcasting from the rides, the Detroit Sports Podcast Network. Here's a couch, put a little S on it and a little L on it,
For sure, setting it on fire right next to us.
Exactly.
It'd be great.
Come on, guys. Come on, Detroit sports. I think our hope now has to revolve around college athletics, but please, Lions, please, guys, just put aside your ego. Consider evolving. You have to. And all you got to say is this. You think I wanted to put my face on video in 2018? No, but you realize that's where the trend was going. So we did it. You evolve. You try and do new things. You have to evolve. You have to do things that are outside your comfort zone. Give people control that are offensive wizards that can do the job. Thank you. It's a mandate. Please fix the offenses. Let us watch some compelling offensive football in 2019. Please. Cause great start to the year. Looking forward to many more broadcasts, great guests, and letting it rip in 2019.
Yeah,
good start.
It's gonna be good. 2019 is gonna be a lot of fun.
For the Jock, Adam Strozinski, I am the Doc, John McAroon. You just downloaded the latest edition of the Doc and Jock podcast.
It's not over yet, so you can ask me that one next week.
Go Blue, bitch.
This was locker room talk.
Second dick.
Sorry, Detroit. Didn't quite work out.
And all I can say is Detroit Sports Podcast scores.
I have voices in my head. They counsel me. They understand. They talk to me. They talk to me.